All right, good morning and welcome to the very last Monday of February. This is Morning Cafe, the 26th of February. Only 3 days left to the end of the extended January, which is February. Yes. Being a leap year, of course, there will be one more extended day. But don't worry, it will be done nonetheless. My name is Fred Indemuli. How hot is the coffee where you are?
And I'm Stanley Yerungita. Did it rain during the weekend? How was your weekend? Tell us as we start this Monday for you, a marvelous Monday, getting into the hashtag wellness and fitness Monday. Later on, as much as I have 2 left feet, we'll be getting into some Zumba.
Oh, yes.
I'm preparing my legs for that. You should also be preparing your legs for that.
Oh, yeah, something to look forward to. Yes,
definitely.
A quick look at the headlines this morning. On the Standard, the Raila dilemma, that's a big headline.
And the Daily Nation, best worst counties to do business with. We'll be telling you which counties those are.
Mbadi apewa urithi. Habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo.
Kwenye gazeti la Star, civil servants deep in debt according to an audit.
On the People Daily, why key hospitals are sick.
And Matters Business, CMA to drop troubled farms from Kenya's stock market.
All right, we'll be looking at these headlines and more later on.
Oh, yes. Let's get into the traffic and the weather updates. We do start with the traffic. Today I'm taking a look at that road from Kitengela all the way if you're heading into town. And so this is the road. A few patches of yellow, meaning some slight traffic snarl-ups trying to build up, and mostly in the bus stations. And getting into this roundabout, it is called the Shalom roundabout. Slight traffic snarl-up building up before you actually hit into getting into Mombasa Road. That road there, as you can see. And so this particular road, if you're from Machakos, getting into that roundabout, heading into Mombasa Road, and if you're actually heading into Nairobi, try to wake up as early as right now and leave the house, because this might build up a little bit later on. Let's take a look at how the weather is looking like. And I'm taking a look at what Kenya Meteorological Department says for various parts of Nairobi. So this is today, the 26th, right now 6 a.m. all the way to around 12 p.m. They say cloudy breaking into sunny intervals, and getting into the afternoon between 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. we do expect some sunny intervals, and there's a chance of light showers today between in the evening all the way to the morning hours. Maximum temperatures for today 30 degrees and minimum about 17 degrees. They say no severe weather expected as of today. That is the weather update for you today. Let's get into the highlights.
All right. In the highlights this morning, the Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service COOPS extends application deadline for government-funded slots in tertiary institutions following portal hitches.
And 6th session of the week-long United Nations Environment Assembly, UNEA 6, kicks off today at the UNEP headquarters in Gigiri with a focus on the gaming industry.
Namibia's third president, Hage Geingob, finally laid to rest at the country's Heroes Acre in Windhoek 3 weeks after he died while undergoing treatment for cancer.
And to some sad news, Peter Morgan, the lead singer of the popular reggae band Morgan Heritage, that he founded with 4 siblings, dies at the age of 46. There he is. Rest in peace, Peter Morgan.
Sad day for reggae fans and music lovers worldwide. Pretty young, 46.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
most definitely. Well, let's get into the news diary for today. And that bit of UNAIR also forms a bit of the first of the one of the highlights. But first off, President William Ruto is expected to open the Homa Bay International Investment Conference today. So the county chief, Gladys Wanga, is expected to host women governors for a meeting ahead of the first day of the conference, which will begin tomorrow. And what I was alluding to earlier, the United Nations Environment Assembly begins today all the way to the 1st of March. So the UN is anticipating the participation of all ministers of environment, member states and stakeholders in committing to take policy actions. Now, on the sidelines of this event, Greenpeace Africa will be hosting a joint conference with Power Shift Africa and the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative on to call for stronger action to tackle the triple planetary crisis, which include climate change, pollution and biodiversity loss. And finally, Principal Secretary for Internal Security and National Administration, that is Raymond Omolo, will today host a Peace, Security and Development Cooperation Roundtable with development partners. That is our news diary for you today. Let's get into the papers now.
All right, we kick off with the Standard this morning, the Raila dilemma. That's a big news on the front page. Which way, they ask. Touted as an enigma, opposition leader is yet again confounding friend and enemy alike. In Azimio, the succession battle has pitted Kalonzo Musyoka against Martha Karua as to who leads the pack should Raila head to Addis Ababa. In government, President William Ruto must make sure he gets a post, as failure will be his personal defeat. And this story has actually been given quite some coverage on pages 6, 7 and 8 of the Standard. Yes, big headline there. The other big story there, a picture of the president shaking hands with Pastor Benny Hinn at the Nyayo National Stadium during the last day of the Healing Crusade yesterday, and it is titled United in Prayer. Not much said there, but I think the picture tells its own story. Other highlights on the front page: patients in pain as county bosses fight over health. Governors skip the launch of the stipend program for community health promoters in what observers say is a deepening of a rift between counties and the national government over health reforms plan. The story is on page 4. More highlights on the top strip of the Standard. Boy taken away from parents, but no one wants to probe. On the international front, Zelensky shows a helping hand 2 years after war. And in business, state agencies chart way forward on economic growth. That's the front page of the Standard. Flip the pages, the paper rather, and look at the back page, and we see Van Dijk's extra time header winning Carabao Cup for Liverpool. Liverpool beat Chelsea to clinch that cup. And yes, for Liverpool fans, of course, it is quite an achievement. And they say it's an injury-stricken Liverpool beating Chelsea 1-0 at the final at the Wembley Stadium. And this was the last Carabao Cup triumph for Klopp. Elsewhere, Cabras and KCB book Kenya Cup semi-sports. And that's the Standard today.
Right, let's get into the Daily Nation. Matters Devolution forming big news on this paper. They say best worst counties to do business with. And they name Kiambu, Nairobi, Narok and Kajiado among rich counties, allocating the least cash to pay huge debts owed to distressed suppliers. So by the 17th of April last year, counties had settled 24 billion Kenya shillings or 49 billion Kenya shillings pending bills, according to the controller of budget. So they also have that particular map showing different bits for Mandera 100%, Nyeri 100%, Siaya 100%, Kiambu 4%, Kajiado 30%, Narok 26%, Nairobi 9%, as well as Lamu 99%. For matters devolution, matters politics, Raila succession now splits Nyanza. And they say Raila Odinga's bid for the post of Africa Union Commission chairperson continues to trigger speculation about his possible successor in a region he has had an iron grip on for decades. Meanwhile, President Ruto hosts televangelist Benny Hinn at State House. The other three highlights on the right. First off, students burn midnight oil to apply for courses. They talk about the e-citizen nightmare that is forcing students to stay up past midnight and to crack the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service KUSSIPS portal and beat the deadline to apply for courses. An investigation on, according to this paper, deadly levels of ethanol in killer drinks. And meanwhile, 16,000 police officers lament SACCO operations. And those are the highlights on this paper. On the back page, they're focusing on matters sports. The first off, the game of kings, it's golf. The culmination of the 2024 Magical Kenya Open, which was the Par 71 Muthaiga Golf Club yesterday. And they say it was a huge 61.8 million cash shillings payday for Dutchman Darius van Gijl, who beat England's Jodine and Spaniard Naco Elvira by 2 shots to claim the 2024 Magical Kenya Open title. At the very top, Kenya dominates Africa Athletics Cross-Country Championships, winning 7 out of 9 categories. And even as we talk about matters athletics, again, it's we're starting off on a sad week. Another athlete who has lost his life in Cameroon. That is the Daily Nation for you.
All right, let's focus on Taifa Leo now. On the front page of Taifa Leo, habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, Mbadi apewa urithi. Kauli ya mkewe Raila yazua maswali ikizingatiwa kuwa Oburu alikuwa amempendekeza Opiyo Wandayi. Aida asema mbunge maalum ana ujuzi wa kutosha kurithi Raila Nyanza. Pale chini wameongeza picha za watu kadhaa, Opiyo Wandayi ambaye ni kiongozi bungeni, na kwingine ni gavana wa Homa Bay Alice Wanga, na kuna picha ya Aida Odinga pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele pamoja na ile ya mwenyekiti wa chama cha ODM Bwana John Mbadi. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, Kalonzo pia anafaa astaafu pamoja na Raila. Sio mimi nimesema, ni bwenyenye Jimmy Wanjigi. Anadai kuwa umri wa Musyoka umesonga sana, mbali na kuwa hana uwezo wa kumshinda Rais Ruto. Masuala ya siasa kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Vidokezo zaidi, Gachagua asifiwa na wazee. Baraza la wazee wa Agikuyu la msifu kwa kuruhusu wanajamii kuendelea kutumia madhabahu. Kwingineko, marufuku kuchinja punda. Na habari zaidi, NAT yataka EduAfya irejeshwe. Kuna habari zaidi pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Habari moja pale, msichana aliyezoa pointi 366 hana karo apatikana kwao akilia baada ya kukosa kujiunga na shule ya upili. Habari yenyewe kwenye ukurasa wa 5.
Hiyo ndio Taifa Leo.
Kuna habari nyingine moja, nafikiri kuna muda. Kivumbi cha taji la EPL cha. Arsenal yazidisha pressure kwa vinara Liverpool na Manchester City. Sasa point ni moja kati ya moja. Na hilo ndilo akusema habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo Jumatatu ya leo.
It was a bad weekend for us.
Yeah, clearly you don't even deserve a highlight anyway. But Liverpool, Manchester City and of course the Arsenal all won their matches.
Oh yes. Kwenye gazeti la Business Daily, CMA to drop troubled firms from Kenyan stock market. And the CMA is the Capital Markets Authority that has given the nod to the setting up of the Contentious Recovery Board for the troubled companies listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The highlights, the very bottom there, Kenya Power gets nod to bill consumers in US dollars. So listen to this. Kenya Power has received approval from the government to bill some of its customers in US dollars in a major win for the firm, whose recent performance has been hit hard by foreign exchange losses. On the ticker, that's on the right strip, they say auditor flags 170 billion Kenyan shillings KQ KPA Kenyan loans. Wow. So they say taxpayers might be forced to repay 170 billion in loans Kenya Airways, Kenya Ports Authority and Kenyan took after the Treasury omitted them from a list of guaranteed debt yet retained in the debt stock computation. Matters economy. More property agents join war against landlords evading tax. And in matters companies, on that ticker, oil dealers in panic as Uganda picks Tanga port over Mombasa. And that, in a nutshell, is the Business Daily for you.
Let's take a look at the People Daily. On the front page of the People Daily, why key hospitals are sick. Delay in release of cash from National Health Insurer makes it impossible for facilities to pay bills, sending them to deathbeds. CS points fingers at National Treasury. That story is on page 4. Matters to do with healthcare. And yes, the bottom there, we have the winner of the golf tournament that has been making headlines across the weekend. And yes, I think it's Darius Van Dryl.
Yes.
The one who won the DP World Tour Magical Kenya Open Golf Championship held at the Muthaiga Golf Club makes it to the front page of the People Daily. Plus, including the prize money, the prize money is 61.8 million Kenyan bob. Wow, just for playing sport. One tournament. How about that?
Oh, how about that?
Still on the front page of the People Daily, meet Kenyan who cooks for Manchester United. He needs to prepare better meals for them to start winning. But yes, a Kenyan is doing that job. And Liza Trisk over blood shortage. On the top strip, new headache for Paranya, and I like the image they've used. A gentleman looks like he's really having a headache, a serious one.
Yes.
That's the People Daily today.
From PD to the Star. And the Star has quite a lot of, quite a number of highlights. On the front, or the top strip, about 3 or 2 highlights. But then the main one here, in shouting, civil servants deep in debt, audit reveals. So more is on pages 4 and 5, where you'll find at least 15 MDAs floated the 2/3 salaries deductions requirement. They also say payslip distress, thousands of bureaucrats facing financial crisis. At the very bottom there, a photo of President William Ruto together with the leadership of APCA during the centenary celebration in Kasarani Stadium yesterday. On the left, something that I was alluding to earlier, athlete Kipsang mourned after racetrack death. So Kenyan runner Charles Kipkorir Kipsang collapsed and died during a race in Cameroon on Saturday. Athletics Kenya has confirmed. So the local governing body said it was in communication with the Cameroonian authorities. Kipsang, aged 33, managed to cross the finish line but collapsed after collecting his prize. Meanwhile, legal eagles. They say fight of insiders versus outsiders goes to the wire. This has to do with the elections of the Law Society of Kenya, where the lawyers will be electing a new president, as well as a male representative to the Judicial Service Commission. And they say in a dogfight, pitting insiders against outsiders. So this comes after the term for Eric Theory has collapsed and has ended, rather elapsed. And that finally matters security. Samburu MCA shot dead in cold blood by suspected bandits. More is on page 3. That is the Star for you.
And that's our cue to take a look at regional matters, and we start off with the East African. Somalia 6 post-ATMIS force, 10 months to the exit of ATMIS. And the ATMIS is the African Union Transition Mission in Somalia. Mogadishu has requested a smaller mission as successor of the African Union force to protect the people as a local army takes charge. That's a big story there on the front page of the East African. Another story given prominence, and we have the chair of the EAC, Salva Kiir, as well as Secretary General Peter Mathuki, in shuttle diplomacy in Rwanda, Burundi, and DRC to ease tensions that threaten to tear the bloc apart. Other stories given prominence on the front page are on the top strip. Tanzania debt rises by 17%. A parliamentary report shows that national debt in Tanzania was at $31 billion by December of last year. And the story is EAC's cost of cash transfer. World Bank says the region is the most expensive in the world to send cash, with Dar topping the list. Those are big headlines on the front page of the East African. And now this gives us the cue to cross the border.
Tuanze na Kampala in Daily Monitor, and rapts of PDM cash transfer. And PDM is Parish Development, let me just get that right. Matters Uganda since the surprise shift, so Parish Development Model. So since the surprise shift of PDM cash transfer from banks to e-money app, Wendy, an official in Kampala, reportedly diverted 70 million Ugandan shillings, Sacco money to start a hardware business. Another in Kamoli district fled with Sacco cash to Canada, while in Kaliro, a group lost 30 million Ugandan shillings in an app glitch. Was on pages 4 and 5. And at the very bottom, Luzira land, mixed reactions of a move to relocate prisons.
And you know, I like that image. You know, in Kenya, we talk about group of schools. Now they have Luzira group of prisons. And this story, some background story, is that there's a move to actually replace that prison, move it from that piece of land, and build a 5-star hotel instead. So there's that push and pull over the land ownership of that. That's a Luzira group of prisons. I think it's the equivalent of committee. Yes, committee group of prisons.
Well, other highlights, big news in Uganda. Now the stories ministers warns LCs not to charge fees. So LCs, the local government minister, warning the local council chiefs against charging fees before offering services. And Buganda clan leader shot dead. Investigations into the killing of a clan held have kicked off, even after a snob killed key suspects. On the top strip, Ngamba considers vasectomy for male chimps over numbers. Interesting story there.
Wamekuwa wengi sana.
Yes. Wondering how that will be done. And finally, matters of healthy living, Kasula's journey of overcoming suicide thoughts. And that's the Daily Monitor. On to the New Vision.
The New Vision 2026 polls, Museveni summons CEC. President set to launch NRM electoral roadmap on Wednesday this week. Yes, the country is gearing up for elections come 2026. It's in 2 years' time. Before we look at any other story, on the top strip of the New Vision, Uganda removed from money laundering lists. This one in relation to what has happened to Kenya. We've been now included on that list, yes, the grey list. Uganda, finally, their situation improving. Other stories on the front page of the New Vision. Inside the move to relocate Luzira prison, we've mentioned that. Ndiga clan leader shot dead. And Museveni meets International Criminal Court chief prosecutor. An image there of Ambassador of the Netherlands to Uganda, among other leaders, kicking off the Harvest Money Expo, where thousands have been attending in Kampala, Uganda. And those are the headlines in Uganda this morning. Let's cross over to Bongo.
Kule Bongo, we start off with the Citizen. Matters business and economy. They say foreign firms locked in battle for key Tanzanian gold project. They say two foreign mining companies, that is Silver Corp Metals Incorporated of Canada and Australia's Perseus Mining Limited, locked in a battle for the control of the potentially lucrative Nyanzaga gold project in Mwanza region. And they have that bit of where the Nyanzaga gold project is located, about 60 kilometers southwest of Mwanza city. On the bottom, nationals of 7 countries among 25 killed in a Arusha road smash. So foreign nationals from 7 countries were among 25 people who were killed on Saturday when a runaway lorry plowed into 3 vehicles in Arusha. Matters the corridors of justice, how member states routinely ignore African court rulings, is on page 3. And those are the top stories in the Citizen.
Tukisalia kule Bongo, tuangazie jarida la Mwananchi. Habari kuu pale, polisi pembeni mzigo wa DPP. Msemaji wa polisi asema jeshi haliwezi kuzungumza hukumu ya mahakama. Kuzungumzia RPC mstaafu afunguka namna udhaifu wa upelelezi unavyowabeba washtakiwa. Ni katika hukumu katika mauaji ya Aneth Msuya. Kwingineko, utingo majeruhi waeleza chanzo ajali iliyoua watu 25. Na kwingineko, Daktari Biteko atoa tumaini mgao wa umeme kukoma. Kwenye spoti, Yanga yatinga robo finali CAF na rekodi tamu. Na hizo ndizo habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kule Bongo kulingana na gazeti hili la Mwananchi. Tuko na masuala ya Rwanda kweli?
Masuala ya Rwanda, they have not yet
hawajamka bado.
Updated the weekend edition.
We're about 1 or 2 hours ahead of them.
About 1 hour.
Yeah, yes. Monday, Jumatatu ni mapema sana kwao.
Oh, yes. And in case you're just watching this and you didn't take a look at this on Friday, the big news for the weekend edition matters NEC, the National Electoral Commission, says it's ready to go ahead of historic polls. It was a whole interview with the NEC chair. And also Kagame as well as Kiir discussing root causes of insecurity in the region. Let's get into the caricature for you this morning.
All right. The cartoons are very interesting today. On page 12 of the Standard, a family seated in the sitting room, in their living room, watching television. They're watching a miracle healing crusade. We had one this past weekend at the Nya National Stadium. And then I think the mother asks, how come they never go to hospitals to heal the sick? And the little one answers, Mom, but there's no offering in the hospital.
Makes sense.
Yes, that's the take on the Standard today, matters religion and faith. Page 15 of the Daily Nation. An image there of Nyayo House, the headquarters of the Immigration Office. And there's a huge tunnel under the building, meaning there's some underground operations happening there. And there's a broom that has swept away cartels from the Nyayo House, but they're still operating underground. Agenda Mali, that's Iga's take on the Daily Nation. What's happening with the applications for passports and other documents?
All right, in People Daily on page 10, Stano goes with matters affordable housing pill, and I mean, should be built, but then there is a gentleman forcing this huge, probably it's a pill, into Common Monanchi's mouth. The commentator says, who is behind all that energy? And you can see behind all that energy of the MP on pigs is a gentleman wearing a green jacket as well as a yellow shirt. You can decipher which colors represent that. That is Stanu's take on matters affordable housing, pill or bill.
All right. We'll be looking at some of these headlines and a lot more with my panelists after the break. This morning we have a Monday power panel. It doesn't get bigger than this. The Senate and also a former ICT minister. Kipruto Arap Kiru, a former agriculture minister, and Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert, and also a former town clerk in Nairobi County. That's our panel this morning. You cannot afford to miss that one. And of course, you can be part of that conversation as well through our social media platforms on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Later on
at around 8 a.m., we discuss matters zero discrimination. On the 1st of March, which is on Friday, the United Nations AIDS will be commemorating this particular day, matters zero discrimination, and really trying to champion and create awareness on matters zero discrimination. And it is a call to action to protect everyone's health and rights. Elsie Wahu Njoroge, mental advocate and founder of No One Left Behind. Alfred Weko, counseling psychologist, as well as Zipporah Ching, mentor, young people living with HIV, will be joining us for that conversation. And later on, we'll be having some Zumba right here. So just getting ourselves into the 1-2-1-2. My legs, oh my days.
okay, can't wait for that.
You should join me one of these days.
All right, I'll
Don't go to your
it's only Monday. I don't want to embarrass myself on national TV. And imagine how many people watch this station. Anyway, let's not take a break. We'll be back with Morning Cafe. Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. We now want to take a look at some of the big headlines this morning, and we're privileged to have in studio Kipruto Rapkirwa, former Agriculture Cabinet Secretary. I think the title then was Cabinet Minister.
Yes, it was Cabinet Minister.
Yeah, karibu sana. It's good to have you in studio.
It's my pleasure too.
I want us to start off with this, even as we wait for the other gentlemen to join us, the headline on the Daily Nation. Best worst counties to do business with. And they say Kiambu, Nairobi, Narok and Kajiado are among rich counties allocating the least cash to pay huge debts owed to distressed suppliers. And by April 17th last year, counties had settled 24 billion shillings out of 49 billion pending bills, according to the Controller of Budgets. Now, this problem has existed for quite a while now, the issue of pending bills. And the question is always asked because there seems to be a disconnect between one administration exiting and another one taking over. And it goes all the way to the national government, but I think county governments have really been affected. Yes, some counties like Nyeri, Siaya, Mandera, Murang'a have already cleared, their payment status is at 100%. Counties like Lamu at 99%, but in Kiambu, the payment status is at 4%. What does it say about the state of devolution? Well, as far as the spending bills issue is concerned.
Yeah, there are a number of challenges that devolution faces. Some of it is effective interface between the incoming and the outgoing administration, in the sense that some of the incoming governors seem to doubt the veracity of those bills and whether it went to the right suppliers or not. And of course, there is also the question of the incoming team may want to create their own cartels. And therefore, the people who are seen previously working with the former administration are people who run the risk. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is also delay in disbursement of resources from the central government. The challenge is any time you delay, and many of these suppliers, and they are not big anyway in terms of money. It may be 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. But in terms of capacity of an individual to mobilize that money from banking institutions, do the project or supply the services, it is huge, because any delay occasioned by any reason whatsoever is likely to eat up into the profit of that individual. And many Kenyans are being auctioned because others mortgage their own houses to get some liquidity when they win a tender in any public institution. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the challenges, and we just hope that in future, from the retreat that the administration had the other day in Naivasha, that in future you will only commit to projects that already have resources.
Yes.
As to whether that is going to be feasible, time will tell, because these pending bills are as old as the administration since 1963. Mm-hmm. There's no time that bills have been cleared. And the control.
But it would appear the problem is getting worse, especially since the advent of devolution.
It's getting worse because now there are many heads and there are many changes that are taking place. As I said, of course, almost like the first governors, almost about a third of them did not make it back. And therefore, whoever made it against them had his own way of looking at things. The second thing is that after the retirement of the governors in the last election, because those who served 2 terms now retired because of the limitation. So the new team that came to the office created their own problems. Mm-hmm. Remember, it was one government since 63, of course, apart from the so-called Majimbo system. But now it is 48 governments, and each government, they have their own nuances, they have their own cartels, and they have their own problems.
Should we look at it simply as something that will pass, that these could just be teething problems for devolution? But then again, it's 10 years, 11 years since the advent of devolution. We have the third set of, we are in the third electoral cycle, meaning some counties have had 3 governments up until now. Surely some of these problems should have been sorted out by now.
Yeah, you know, at the beginning of time, Fred, devolution was more of devolution of money, devolution of services, but it was not benchmarked that if you are taking that certain services to the ground, do you have the requisite human resource? So some of the counties started afresh from a clean slate, and that slate was, of course, not populated very well because some of the governors were doing administration for the first time. As you know, the most effective, the most popular person is not necessarily the best administrator. Mm-hmm. So these problems are likely to persist because there is also bad manners in our society where when you get into an office of privilege, instead of serving the public, you are worried, after 10 years, where will I be? And therefore, you want to line your pockets so that any politician would aspire to go higher, not to go horizontal or to go down. So this is something that we must fight, and Kenyans must remain focused on trying to ask for the best from each leader.
What if you look at it as from an administration perspective? Because even at the national government level, we do understand that, yes, there could be political leadership, but most of these state departments are run by technocrats. That is the expectation even at the county level, that county governments, despite the governors and the CECs changing, that particular departments within the county governments could still perform in perpetuity beyond successive administrations, because there are people who stay there as technocrats employed directly by the government and not by the politicians. Are we saying that that is not happening?
Well, the challenge is that public servants, even including those in the national government, they usually listen to the boss, and they will be able to see what is your thinking, what is your orientation, and what are the things that make you happy. And they will try to sustain themselves in perpetuity, but not to sustain programs on the ground. So that is the main problem. And it is the main problem in Kenya and in many other countries, and particularly in many counties. So what we need to do is to have effective leadership. Because once a leader says, this is the direction, this is the way I'll be doing things, without also he himself getting embroiled in some of these small deals here and there, that can be an effective county. Remember, Professor Kivuta Kibwana was able to run the full 10 years without much of a problem, because he stood, and when the chips were down, he said, I would rather go home with a team of MCAs. And he was praying for the government of the day in Makueni to be dissolved. And of course, the next election, I think the public is also very responsive. I think most of those MCAs, except one or two, survived the onslaught of the public. Mm-hmm. And Professor Kibwana was able to make his second term. So it is important, and we don't have so many Kibwanas in this country. Mm-hmm. What we need to do is to tell young people, inculcating them a sense of civic duty to ensure that whatever election you go to, you are looking for the best manager.
Interestingly, you mentioned the issue of the MCAs. County assemblies are supposed to be there to check the excesses of failure through commission or omission by county administrations. And a government that already has an assembly checking and oversighting its performance should not be having so many problems. Yet we are seeing that that system is still not working. What could be the problem? That we have an institution to oversight a county administration, but there's still issues around it.
The major challenge is that what's the quality of most of the MCAs? What is the orientation of most of the MCAs? The quality, yes, may be getting improved. But you see, university education is not a guarantee of quality. There are many people who do not have some of these certificates, but they are people of integrity. Now, the second issue is that even the MCAs, they want to behave like governors. That's why you hear there is glamour for ward fund, there is clamor for the MP, there is clamor even for the senator to say, I need more money for oversighting. The issue that I see, and that was a model that may not have taken off, was the one of district focus for rural development, where resources get to the county or to the district at that particular time, and those resources now are decided on the basis of programs and priorities coming from the ground. I feel instead of an MCA, instead of an MP, being quasi-executive in the sense that he's not supposed to be implementing the projects in the constituency. And he's not supposed to be implementing projects in the ward. But to be fair to every unit of devolution in Kenya, there must be money for every ward out of 1,550. There must be money for every constituency. But that money should be midwifed through a program that the implementers are not necessarily the overseers or those who are supposed to oversight.
Yet that's a conversation we are having now with the NADCO report at the national level, that we are seeking to entrench these funds, which are basically run by legislators who, it's not their role. Theirs is to represent, legislate and oversight. But we are now going to have this conversation on entrenching these funds into the constitution. Is it a system failure because we appear to be trying to delink ourselves from what is prescribed by the constitution?
Yes, I agree. It is a failure. And you know, at times, even what is popular is not necessarily the right thing. If I was to decide, my constituency where I come from, that I represented for 20 years, Cherangani, if you have 200 million for Cherangani constituency, for example, let the money be ring-fenced for the constituency activities and programs. But that money should not be decided on who gets the bursary, who gets what by the sitting member of parliament. It must be an independent entity so that the member of parliament only becomes the mouthpiece for the people. Perhaps some of the people may be disadvantaged for one reason or the other. He can also give his recommendations, but he should not be the ultimate authority, which is the case today. They will say there is a committee at the constituency, but that committee is constituted by the member of parliament. And therefore, once I give you a job, you will have to, and you knowing that I can remove you from that particular position, you will have to listen to me. And that is the major danger. And now they are saying, apart from that, they want to take it to each and every ward. And the MCA is going to be like the CEO. You may call it in any other language, but effectively, the MCA, the MP, the governor, the president, the ultimate authority holders in those particular places. So that effective separation of powers is a bit hazy. It's a bit dicey. It is not as effective as it ought to be.
Yet the Constitution tried its best to ensure that the lines were much clearer. Where is the disconnect coming from?
We cannot legislate bad manners. You see, when
it's purely bad manners.
Bad manners, and it is a major problem. And well, of course, you know, the late Chinua Achebe. You say the problem with Africa: number 1, leadership; 2, leadership; 3, leadership.
Okay.
We fail to lead our own people.
And going back to the issue of that you're seeing on the front page, we could draw a parallel with some other actions that are happening, especially with transitions to new administrations at the county level. And that's the high turnover of the HR, the human resource factor in counties, that every new governor coming in comes with his own people. And those who are there, most of them are forced out, probably worsening this issue of pending bills, because without institutional memory, then these are the problems we face.
I entirely agree with you. I agree with you, and we have to look for a solution to that. Because yes, there are certain critical components in any administration that must be carried over or must be dispensed with when a new governor comes to office. But it should not be as like the business of the governor to clean the whole place, as if those Kenyans who were serving previously were not effective. Unless somebody has a unique challenge that he cannot serve in the new administration, the kind of transition should be seamless, such that the natural attrition process takes place. Some people will be retained, some people will be dispensed with. And it is something that also I saw with even Uhuru Ruto administration in 2013, when they almost recalled all the ambassadors until they were told, no, this is not how it happens diplomatically. And of course, they did away with most of the Kibaki ministers. Well, I was not one of the beneficiaries, so I could not say that I'm crying over spilled milk. Now, look at this administration, Uhuru Ruto. Then when Ruto takes over, he retains only one minister out of the team that he had with President Uhuru. And I'm sure They had agreed in 2013 and 2017 or 2018 that 2017 that the kind of leadership they were going to have is a shared leadership.
But surely we can't expect one president to come and keep cabinet ministers from the previous administration. Is it really a legitimate expectation of a new leader?
Legitimate, I may not say, but it is reasonable. It is, because you see, the transition must move in a way that you do not just depart from the past. Remember in 1968, when the Kenya Air Force was formed, the first commander of the Air Force was from the British Army. And yet British Army was what we were trying to run away from. So there must be some transition. Kibaki won. Dr. Sally Koskei retained her position as head of public service for 6 months until now the Kibaki administration was ready to ease off some of the officers and retain some. Some were retained, almost some of the PSS, up to the full term of Kibaki 1. So the issue is simple. It is not a revolution. It is an election, democratic process where individuals must pave the way and others must give way.
Okay.
Yep.
And shouldn't therefore the conversation be more towards managing transitions from one administration to another? At the national level, we see that even there's usually a special committee that's in place months before and months after. Shouldn't we be having the equivalent, especially at the county level, for accountability purposes? At least, if at all the exiting governor was required to still be there and ensure that every transition is smooth, including giving clarity on issues like pending bills and others, don't you think that probably, if properly legislated, should be a proper remedy?
It should not only be legislated, but we must also inculcate in ourselves that feeling that, yes, it's not the end of the world. When I lose as governor, or when I get in as governor, I'm not bringing anything totally fresh. Some of the things of the past will still remain in the system. Otherwise, it would be foolhardy for anybody to expect that a new administration will be new in all aspects of it. So my take is simple. Yes, you can have the law, you can have regulations, but if you do not provide in your mind that this transition is not departing from the practice that we know of doing things the right way, and you still need to keep in check whatever was happening and have clear handing over notes, because that's the way most administrations have been dealing with. I saw the one of Liberia, where the young man, the footballer, George Weah, when he lost the elections, the new president, who was fairly elderly, about 10 years older than I am. I'm not suggesting that I have those ambitions. But so it was simple handing over, where the new president is coming in a small convoy of about 4 or 5 vehicles to the seat of power. Then the outgoing president receives him. They just have a cup of tea, and the outgoing president leaves. It's not like this that we spend a lot of money, a lot of time, making it so complicated. Handing over should be seamless. It should be something simple.
Isn't it what we've been seeing? Because when we had the first set of governors that exited in 2017, there were a lot of complaints about people just closing offices or carrying everything from the office and leaving days before the new governor is sworn in. But at least this past transition period in 2022, we saw a lot of handing over of instruments of power, even at the county level.
Yes.
Does it mean, therefore, that probably we are improving slowly? It's just taking time.
Well, that is my prayer. It's my prayer that we are improving slowly, and it's also my prayer that whoever has been in the office, at times some institutional memory that you may need to call from time to time, that how are you doing this? You see, asking to be assisted in resolving an issue is not a sign of weakness. We should always know that any time we have a challenge, other people may have the information, and there is no need for you to walking down the same road that somebody has walked down and has been knocked down by a disaster. Okay. It is always good to learn from the mistakes of others.
All right. Best, worst counties to do business with. That's the front page of the Daily Nation. And it talks about an accumulated pending bills of 794 million shillings. Most of these are also in counties, and they've given a list of counties that are worst paying, despite having a lot of resources. And Kiambu tops the list at 4%. Payment status. Nairobi, 9%. Narok, Kajiado, and Nyandarua are following there in that order. Meanwhile, best paying counties in Nyeri, 100% payment status. And Siaya, Mandera, and Murang'a as well. So kudos to some of these governors. Time for us to take a break. You're watching Morning Cafe, and we'll be back to discuss a lot more. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. We continue looking at the headlines and the news coverage as it is. We do not make up any news ourselves. And we're privileged to have in studio, I'm still in studio with Kipruto Rapkirwa, former Agriculture Cabinet Minister. Now joining the panel, Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert. He's also a former town clerk for the great city county of Nairobi. Karibu sana Bwana Kisia.
Thank you.
Before we take a look at other stories, I would want to make reference to a story that is featured on all the front pages. Nothing much is being talked about. The picture there at the bottom of the front page of the Standard, United in Prayer. President William Ruto shaking hands with Pastor Benny Hinn at Nyayo National Stadium. Another image of the same on the front page of the Daily Nation. Still nothing much being said about it. On the cartoon, on page 12 of the Standard, a family watching this miracle healing crusade, and one of them says, how come they never go to hospitals to heal the sick? And the answer is, but there are no offering in the hospitals. And it is a very dicey kind of discussion to have, but one that we must have nonetheless, and that is a place of religion vis-a-vis the state. And many people have, there's been a lot of criticism, especially directed towards the person of the First Lady, Mama Rachel Ruto, especially on social media, because she's the one who indicated earlier on that she had made this invitation to the preacher that we now saw, Pastor Benny Hinn. Is this kind of criticism justified? Is there a place for faith-based diplomacy, or are we going in the wrong direction? Bwana Kisia.
Well, thank you, Fred. First of all, you know, I don't want to appear as if I don't appreciate religion, because I come from a very strong background. My great-grandfather was the founder of the Quaker church in Kenya. But to specifically talk about this guest who is being hosted by, we understand, by public funds, I think there's a lot to talk about this. Because how do you just invite somebody all the way from Europe to come and pray, yet we have our own religious leaders here in Kenya who can do the same job? Of what value does he bring? I think that should be the question. What value does he come with? Are they saying that the prayers that were made by this gentleman are better than the prayers that would have been made by a person of Kenyan origin? I think some of these things, they don't add up. Completely don't add up. Especially spending millions of shillings to get somebody from Europe to come and just pray and go. It's a waste of public funds. There's no space. I mean, I'm not saying we should not pray, but can't we get people from here to pray for us? Must we get somebody from Europe, spend millions of shillings of public funds? I think this is immoral, if you ask me.
Bwana Kirwa, the biggest question is the involvement of State House in this. That when we have the State House, the presidency, or the office of the First Lady inviting preachers to the country, and probably that's the question, because these preachers come from time to time through their own initiatives or through invitations by other churches. But when we see State House getting involved in this, is there a question there?
Well, I do not know the details whether Mama Rachel invited...
She said herself that she was the one who invited them when they were in the US.
Yes, and now the invitation, is it on private capacity? Because Mama Rachel is also a Kenyan, and she can invite a preacher of her choice. But if she's inviting with a view that the state is going to fund some of the activities, then I think that is wrong, because this is a country of multi-religious facets. And therefore, if today I'm a Muslim and I'm the president, then I exclusively invite Muslim preachers, or I'm a Hindu and I invite people from the Hindu, or I'm of any faith, then I think that's dangerous, because we are almost making it synonymous. Because at times, some of the unspoken things can almost become the culture of a nation. Because remember, the late Mwalimu Julius Nyerere told Tanzanians that Tanzania is not a Christian state. And what he meant is that you cannot talk of Christianity, and he himself was a devout Catholic, but you cannot talk about Christianity or your faith at the exclusion of others. So I would still reserve my comments, but suggest that any invitation should be on private capacity. The president himself and the Marejo, they have the necessary attraction that if they are to invite anybody, the sadaka they will get from there is enough to take care of those people. But the state should not spend even a penny. Okay. Otherwise, that would be immoral. Which budget are they going to use? If it's going to be State House budget, it is immoral, because what will Muslims say? What will other religions say? What trend are we setting? That every head of state must therefore make his religion the religion of the nation? Yep.
And so many questions have been asked about the relationship between State House and even churches, local churches here in Kenya. The question of Kenya being a secular state, and whether or not we are trying to blur the lines between church and state, Bwana Kiswe. Do you think there are questions that, these are legitimate questions that Kenyans are asking? Why this close relationship?
You see, I think there's something that these people are trying to mask, the first family. And you know, sometimes when you know that you have some shortcomings, when you know that some of the things that you are doing are bound to be questioned, you tend to hide behind religion. And you know, because Kenya generally is a very religious state, to a large extent. People actually respect the church to the extent of fearing it. So the only place you can, for mwananchi can seek refuge is the religion, the church, or the mosque, or the temple, okay? So where is the best place to hide? Even from a leader's perspective, you hide behind religion, because that is where there are very few questions that are bound to be asked. You don't question, you don't question religious leaders. You know, that's how we've been brought up. That's how we've been culturalized. So I think, from where I'm sitting, the first family, of course, they're oblivious of whatever is going on, and the only place they can go and mask themselves and mask Kenyans is behind the church. Oh. But as Mheshimiwa said, I think it's immoral. Because, you know, it's not just about the money that is spent to get this gentleman here. He has an entourage, security detail, accommodation. Yet our children have not gone to school because of lack of school fees. Our children are walking barefoot. Our children have no clothes, uniform. We need medicine. Yet you are spending millions of public funds to bring one gentleman here for a one-day event. It's absolutely immoral.
Wow. There's a lot to be said about the place of religion in Kenya and the kind of issues that we've had with the religious leaders in Kenya as well. If we may look at what has happened in at the Shakahola, and so many questions have been asked. We are yet to get a conclusive answer on how religion got us to that point. It is a very dicey discussion, but questions need to be answered as well on our entire handling of religion in Kenya.
Yeah, I agree. The way Mr. Philip Kisya has just said, we respect religion, and Kenyans are very, are almost, they revere anybody seen to be invoking the name of God, to the extent that at times people have misused some of these opportunities almost to embezzle or even to hoodwink people into certain situations. That is where we feel there is need for openness, there is need for courage for us to call to account whoever is in position of leadership, not to disguise himself using religion. It is not really lost in the minds of many Kenyans that many of the religious leaders who supported the current regime are now saying we supported the regime because we did not know that this regime was going to face us with some of the realities we are seeing today. So if we are using it as a mask, if we are using it just to disguise that all is well, then that is totally immoral, and it is unfortunate that religion and even security, we have made it synonymous, such that some of the projects that there have been some scandals, people say these are security projects, you don't question, you don't create an audit, but we need to audit everything in our society. Otherwise, we run the risk of Kenyans in future saying, where were you when this happened to us?
Okay. Yeah. Questions definitely need to be asked on matters security and religion as well, and the relationship with the administration of the day. I want us to look at another headline that comes from the weekend. Yes, matters religion, they come from the weekend as well. The Miracle Healing Crusade that happened on Saturday and Sunday at the Nyayo National Stadium. Something else that happened this past weekend was Kenya's ranking on matters dirty cash flow and money laundering. And I'm looking at a headline here from a Business Daily. I think it was Saturday. Kenya grey listed for dirty cash flow in money laundering war. Kenya has again been put under high watch for not having strong safeguards against the flow of dirty cash, joining 23 other countries on a list of shame known as the grey list. This happened on Friday. The Finance Action Task Force, FATF, which is a global anti-money laundering watchdog, made a decision to put Kenya on the grey list, a move that is likely to hurt Nairobi's standing as a financial center of the region. This is not something we are proud of. I was just looking at, because we looked at some of the papers from our neighboring countries. And as Kenya was being included on the list, a headline from Uganda talked about Uganda being removed from the money laundering list. That's this morning. So definitely even in the region, we are not doing very well. But Bwana Kisia, Fred Matiang'i, the former Interior CS, warned us that we risk electing very many people engaging in money laundering, and he used the words wash into parliament. Now we're seeing results of this years later.
Are you surprised that we've been listed?
I don't know whether or not to be surprised.
Because, you see, this is a bandit economy. This is a mafia economy. The people who are leading a mafia. Okay? So you don't expect anything better. I'm surprised that it took longer. This listing should have happened.
Are you saying we had it coming?
Yes, this thing should have happened many months ago. But it has not happened. You know, when you are led by characters who have questionable past, whose wealth can, you can't actually, they can't explain to you how they acquired wealth. You cannot tell us that you are so smart, yeah, to the extent that your wealth has been created by selling eggs. Billions of shillings. Not hundreds of thousands, billions of shillings by selling eggs. Now you see, when you have such amounts of money that are questionable, that have been acquired through corruption, and you know the world all over, and America, our president is going to America. He announced that himself. There was a statement from White House, and we're happy that that's happening. But I'm hoping that President Biden will talk about this issue, among other issues, that they're not just going to have a cup of tea. You know, when you are listed, it's a very bad sign. It's actually just saying, because when you have so much inflow into the economy, which cannot be supported. If you remember during Mheshimiwa's time, when he was more youthful without the grey listing. Yeah? You know what happened to this economy?
Yeah.
That you have cash that cannot be supported. We're actually heading there. So people have money, they cannot explain their source. They can only inject that money into the economy through using dubious methods, okay? So it's bound to happen, it's happening. We're actually going to face very, very hard times in the near future, because I don't see this stopping. Because the persons who are in charge, that's their character. That is who they are.
But Bonakirwa, you've served in very high offices in this country. What exactly leads to this kind of situation where an economy is full of money laundering activities, trafficking of wildlife, trafficking of drugs, trafficking of gold? What usually leads to this kind of problem?
Well, there are a number of sources. One of the sources, of course, of money laundering is presence of money that you've not worked for. And therefore, you cannot explain and you cannot even bank in a legitimate institution. And therefore, you have to look for other outlets. Some of the people, they move into construction. Some may buy even thousands of livestock. So as when they sell livestock, now they put the money into normal channels. Others can start car bazaars. I'm not saying all car bazaars are money laundering, but we know some of them, they are started just because you have to get some vehicles and sell. And when you sell vehicles, and others even start hotels that do not exist, and some of the Airbnbs, so that every Monday you are banking money in millions, and you say it is from my Airbnb, and nobody slept in any of the rooms. And some even, they use it like normal sadaka, proceeds from the church on Sunday. And you will not tell us...
again, the issue of church comes again?
Yes. You'll be banking 5 million and you say, okay, in my church in Karen or in wherever it is, these were the offerings. The people were blessed abundantly, and therefore they decided to come and offer.
Can these things happen without the knowledge of the state or the administration? And even as you answer that, I'd like to welcome Bwana Samuel Pogisio onto the set. Bwana Samuel Pogisio has also served as Cabinet Secretary of ICT, and probably he will have a lot to say about this issue of money laundering as well. Karibu sana on the set. But can this happen without the knowledge?
Yeah, I also wanted to remind you that the Honorable Pogisio is a very religious man. Mm-hmm. So he may be able to assist us about the sadaka, how it comes on Monday. And so the state must of necessity know, but at times it depends on who is involved in the money laundering. If it is at the level of that, because you've heard, even internationally, that some of the institutions and some of the individuals, high-ranking in terms of state apparatus, are involved in some of these things. And that some of them, they actually do it through even the intelligence system.
Wow. Bwana Pogisio, you found us discussing this headline that comes from the weekend about Kenya's listing. Kenya grey listed for dirty cash flow in money laundering war. And if I could just give you the background, Kenya has again been put under high watch for not having strong safeguards against the flow of dirty cash, joining 23 other countries on a list of shame known as the grey list. This was on Friday. The Finance Action Task Force, FATF, the global anti-money laundering watchdog, made a decision to put Kenya on the grey list, a move that is likely to hurt Nairobi's standing as a financial center of the region. Now, the grey list refers to countries that have deficiencies in dealing with money laundering and terrorism financing. This is what we're trying to scrutinize. We are asking whether or not this can get to this level. We are being listed without the knowledge of the administration or the security agencies, knowing that something is already wrong.
Well, thank you very much, and let me just join, because I mean, where my colleagues have reached, and
we're just beginning this conversation.
I don't want to repeat myself, but you know, Kenya's position as a transit destination by everybody from all over the world makes it difficult for Kenya to resist monies coming from everywhere and not knowing. And I'm sure that, you know, there's so much banking that goes on. And so it's suspect all the time, because either you're from West Africa or South Africa and Central Africa, you find Nairobi to be easy to walk in and deposit your monies. And so we have a problem like that, which means we have to be more strict. Kenya is the transit, almost African transit center for all flying through, KQ and all that. So I do believe that what I heard my colleagues saying is true, that we have to work double if you want to change that narrative, because the narrative is there, it's common knowledge that some of our banks also are compromised. And of course, you can't do anything like that if you do not have connections in the system. I mean, you have to have connections in the system. It depends on the amount of money, the level of connection depends on how much you bring in. And so whatever happens, the laundering may be here, but laundering could also happen somewhere else, and just Kenya gets to be the headquarters for banking such monies. Of course, we've heard so much about all sorts of dirty money, which is in-house from Kenya and also from outside Kenya.
Yes, and Bonakirwa mentioned something interesting, and he challenged you to answer that, on the involvement of the church, even in some of these illegal activities like money laundering.
It is, by the way, that's not even secret. It's an open secret that there's some independent churches that will buffer you with how much they collect on a weekly basis, and so and you know, the politicians and other people, what they have decided to do is agree with him as a leader of the church and just say, you know, can we work together? And so it is. So eventually, what goes to the church account is not what was delivered on that day in sacks. And we have this terrible thing in Kenya where we show what we give, you know, and openly tell how much we've given, which is, if it's against church doctrine, right? The church doctrine says the left hand should not know what the right hand is doing. And so how come you accept that? And then who audits the church is a question. Who audits the church after that big gift has been given? So who audits? Who goes to say, by the way, you got 5 million the other day? Can we see if it's in your books? No, I mean, so we have issues, and I think that's why we should continue to tighten these things. If we want to improve and get out of the grey list, we must do that, and government must step in. And let's agree that there's grand corruption in every system that we have. You know, you can get yourself out of any situation. Okay? And so you have a situation where I think we have to address the issue of integrity, address the issue of corruption and fighting corruption. So anti-money laundering, what we call wash in Kenya is money laundering, right? and we use it every day. So this guy is driving that big car because of wash. But we realize that is anti-laundering. And so do we need to name names about that? No, we don't need to, because Kenyans can see. It's actually got to a point when you could see somebody who yesterday didn't have anything, now is a billionaire, is driving cars, is flying choppers. And so, I mean, what is that? I mean, you have to answer those questions.
Okay. So, and the involvement of very young people in this business has created a sense, probably propagated a sense of disillusion among other younger Kenyans, because they see their colleagues getting money very fast and driving big cars at a very young, tender age before they even can explain their wealth. This could be a financial problem, but to the society, it could impact it differently. Bonakisia.
I think you're spot on, Fred. You know, what type of future are we building for our children? When people can see through you, they see the lifestyle you're living, they know you've not worked hard, they know that you've acquired what you have through corrupt means. What future are we building? The other day I saw, and I'm sorry to say this because I know my brother Kirwa was among the youth for Kanu 92, and you know, and things started happening at that time. I'm not saying he was, you know, but I'm saying he was there during that time.
He was a youth.
He was a youth at that time. So, I think it was over the weekend. My good friend, Professor Tom Ojienda, dishing out money to children, I think who are probably 6, 7, 8 years old. Dishing money. They were lining and he was giving them money. What values are we instilling in our children? That you can just get free money? If you want to gift, is there not a better way of gifting children than asking them to learn dehumanizing children. Just giving them 100 bob. And, what type of culture is this? What are we doing to our children? I think time has come, and I know last time I said that we need to clean up the political system. And how we clean up is not what we've agreed. We need to agree that we have come to a point where the entire system needs to be cleaned.
Is it a moral
And it cannot be cleaned by the people we currently have.
Because now
there are problems.
Looking at the societal fabric, when we just talk about the church, even the church being involved in criminal activity like money laundering, the church which is supposed to be the mirror of morality, then we see young people being involved in this crime, and yet this is what we look up to. Most young people aspire to be like these ones, which is basically criminal. The fact that we keep electing leaders who are engaging in crime, and a reminder of what the former CS Bwana Matiang'i said, that we risk electing people engaging in money laundering, and he said wash into parliament, meaning that we have those people inside our houses of legislation, the august house. What does it say about our moral fabric as a country?
Yeah. First of all, I just wanted to clear something. I was young in 1992. I was in Kanu, but I was not youth for Kanu. Because
you were not YK 92.
I was not YK 92 because
we were all young.
By then I was a member of parliament, and it was a very clear distinction. If you are youth for Kanu, you don't run for an elective position. So I was not youth for Kanu. But what I can own up is the fact that my good friend Cyrus Jirongo agreed with me slightly earlier that there was a document I had already authored called the Kanu Youth Group for in the framework of national development, which now he was able to do it and give it live as a campaign machine for Kanu. Now, and you had him.
And you take credit for that?
Well, I say I take credit, but the details are not mine. But you had him saying I was also grey listed because my beard is grey. So you can see he's insinuating, and I'm getting worried. He's supposed to be my friend, but now he's creating a lot of insinuations, which can create another picture of me.
He needs to clarify on this same part.
Yeah, he's almost saying I'm wash, and I'm not capacity to do that. Because to be wash, you must have excess money that you cannot explain. Mine is from farming and from pension.
Okay.
Now, to get to the issue of our society, you see, the church is a reflection of society. The leadership that we have is a reflection of society. What is our society? We have not been able for the last many years to inculcate in young people the fact that you must do everything possible to get it right. I remember in 1962, when Nyerere came back from sabbatical leave, which he took 1 year, in the school program, there was an issue of the values that a child must get to be a Tanzanian, Utanzania, Utanganyika by then. And one of which was to put in the school program what it means to be a Tanganyikan. Somebody, so that those values are taken through the school curriculum. The school curriculum that we have is how to create wealth, how to do other things, but not how to institutionalize values in our society. And this is where the rain started beating us.
Okay. Bwana Pogisio, you must agree that we are facing a situation where get rich quick is the order of the day. That every young person, most young people do not have the patience to go through the rigors of life to eventually make it the way you have. This is informed by the leadership we have, that probably you get money through proceeds of crime, you run for office, and we have basically legitimized these criminal activities to the extent that even the churches are feeling justified to engage in the same. What is your take on that?
Well, first of all, I saw a piece the other day of a worry that's trending in Kenya, that people go into criminal activity now with their families. It's no longer just you, the wash. But now you've roped in your children, you rope in your wives, and so and so on. And it's becoming a worrying trend. So what do you think now? A child who has not worked for anything, but money is stashed in his account so early, how is that child going to turn up? I mean, you should worry about trend. And how are other children going to look at this kid vis-a-vis the rest, and how are they going to respond to that kind of thing? There's going to be an appetite to be like that kid. And so that's what has, and of course that corrupt money, that money which is stolen and given to kids, will destroy your kid to begin with, will destroy your wife to begin with. It's something that's going to eat you. Because what you're doing is trying to hide some of your monies in these accounts, and the kids grow up knowing that they have billions of shillings or millions of shillings in their account, and that will affect how they study, how they relate, and all those kind of things, what they begin to take, because now they are empowered by money. But what's worrying actually is this family is going to court together, you know, because you've been caught, and you find that children are involved in this kind of thing. So I don't believe that we are raising very good children or raising a good generation, because we're showing them that if you do not have money, whichever way you want to get that money, it doesn't matter. What we think is that you must look like you have money, show that you have money, flash money around. And it's going to affect the next generation. It's going to affect how we relate between children. It's going to affect how, when they grow up, they're going to relate as leaders of this country. And so we have started thinking that competing to see who has more money is an example to show to our children, which is not very good.
And you've been a leader in the houses of legislation. And because if we may draw a parallel between the quality of leadership that we had then, and now that you have so many elected members of probably the Senate or the National Assembly who found themselves having to explain the source of their wealth and trying to fight off accusations of being involved in some of these criminal activities, wash and money laundering. What would you say to that?
You know, Mheshimiwa Kirwa will tell you that we started this thing off as very humble servants of the people. Those of us who started then are a bit different from the people who came in later when they already had so much money. We started, I remember my first salary as a member of parliament was just 10,000 shillings. And out of that, you still had to pay the taxman and your cooperative share, whatever it is. And you are always left with something that can only put you. We could not afford a house in Nairobi. Yeah. We couldn't afford a hotel, as you call it, a hotel. We had to be in the back hotels, lodging and boarding. That's why we used to stay. Because it was not, the idea was not for you to use your position to make money. But today, members of parliament, people who should not be making money out of their positions, are actually being enriched just to become a chairman of a committee. You know, people are fighting to become a chairman of a committee. In the old days, we knew the order in which you would become a chairman of a committee. But today, you get somebody who has never had any experience in House Parliament, chairing a very big committee, and no experience at all. But because it is lined up so that there's a way in which they can draw money, it's actually a very worrying situation for members, because the members of Parliament are supposed to serve the society. And if you look at it, if you do a very good study, you become a chairman today, you're a millionaire by the end of your term. How come? Who makes who? How do you get that money? You know, and I think Parliament should worry about that. I think the ordinary person should worry about that. I mean, we've held these positions. We've been ministers. We've been all this, and you can't see anything that we took home with from the office or from that position, except what was due to us. But a new system comes where it's almost open, that we've given you the position, so sort yourself out, instead of saying, watch for public resources. And
Bwana Kisia, you're not a great fan of this parliament, this current parliament. You are on record criticizing their performance. We could say that some of these things are beginning to show in their performance, don't you think?
Yeah, first of all, let me clear the air.
Yes.
You know, in the midst of people I have very high regard of, these two gentlemen, and the people who served under Kibaki, I can tell you for free, their morality is not at question It has never been at question. It will never, at any point. So I hold my good friend Kipruto Arap Kirwa in very high esteem. It was on a light note because I'm saying when he was young, he didn't have this gray. Yes.
But he said grade listing.
No, I was saying he was on the...
Fair enough.
But anyway, so, and of course, some of the best performing ministers we had in agriculture, we've never had, after he left, we've never had somebody who has matched his performance, and also in ICT, my friend Pogisho. This parliament, and I think I could see it coming, because now people were getting into parliament not because they wanted to serve the people. People were getting into parliament to line up their pockets, number one. Because you know, once you get in and you become a chairman of a committee, you are not going to perform. The only performance you have is to summon state corporations, is to summon cabinet secretaries and so on and so forth, and extract money from them, using whatever means, threats and intimidation. Number two is you got into parliament, because once you know you're a member of parliament and you align yourself with the ruling system, the ruling class, then again you have an opportunity to protect the illicit money that you've acquired over time. Mm-hmm. So it's no longer about servant leadership.
It's actually to sanitize crime.
It is to sanitize crime, okay? Which is most unfortunate. And if this is not brought to under control, we are going to destroy the future generations we have.
And is it that we simply ignored what the Interior CS, Bwana Matiang'i, said? Because he appeared to have a better understanding of the issue, and he said, what I'm seeing, we will have a House of Parliament full of wash guys. That was not a simple statement coming from an Interior CS.
You see, unfortunately, Fred, and my two seniors will tell you, the voter, and I hope in future, now that they have seen what bad mistakes can cost you, that moving into the future, either before 2027 or 2027, that you will elect people, not because of how much money they have spent on you, but because the abilities they have in terms of serving you, in terms of serving this country, that they have a vision, that they are committed to serve, okay? What we currently have in our parliament is total shame. And you see, and again from both sides, there's no side that is clean, either opposition or the UDA team. To become a member of parliament, you basically buy the seat in advance. You spend millions of shillings. Mm-hmm. To become a governor, you spend hundreds of millions of shillings in advance on the leadership. And then again, you spend hundreds of millions of shillings to bribe the voter.
Okay.
What are we going to do to save future generations of this country?
And that's a question, because now, if at all the CS then, in charge of Interior, a very powerful docket, expressed what we may say is helplessness, a sense of helplessness and hopelessness, that this is what I'm seeing. Elements involved in wash and anti-money laundering will find themselves in Parliament. And he could not do anything about it. Now we've been grey-listed. Is it safe to say that there's nothing much we can do about it?
Well, I always hope, I always believe there is hope in this country, and I never give up. Because when you give up, then the disaster follows. But to look at the issue and dissect it is more of a social issue. Social in the sense that today, if you went to any part of this country seeking for an office, be it that of an MP, senator, you must part with a certain amount of money. People will not listen to you to the end unless you've already inculcated in them certain sense of discipline. And that discipline is disappearing very fast. What worries me is that how are we going to change that unless we were to do what I usually refer to as social reengineering of our community, so that people see new value in life. Because what worries me is not even the wash, because that could be in the minority for now. But what are we telling other members of society that do not know the means of getting into this money gravy train that is got the money that we are now referring to as wash? We are telling them, you don't have to work hard. And nowadays they say you don't work hard, you work smart. And smart is even to get money without clearly explaining where it has come from. Finally, on this particular issue, what is the legal justice system doing? Because some of these people have been arrested over issues of money laundering, doing some illicit business, conning some foreigners.
Gold trade.
Gold trade. And yet we do not have a lot of gold except in Ikolomani. Now, when you arrest these people, and after some time, all those cases disappear, what are you telling us?
And the gold.
And even the gold is not even, does not find its way to the court of law. So what are you telling us? You are telling us this is a system that has compromised itself. We would want to see prosecution to the end.
Okay.
We are not saying arrest and jail people without evidence, but we are saying the justice system must be seen to be working.
All right. As we wrap up this edition of Morning Cafe, the State of the Nation, there's some news that, or rather, headline that we cannot afford to ignore. And it's the main story on the front page of The Standard, the Raila dilemma. He started as an enigma. Opposition leader is yet again confounding friend and enemy alike. In Azimio, the succession battle has pitted Kalonzo Musyoka against Martha Karua as to who leads the pack should Raila head to Addis Ababa. In government, President William Ruto must make sure he gets the post, as failure will be his personal defeat. That's a standard. On the front page of the Daily Nation, we have the same. Raila succession now splits Nyanza. The bid for UN has triggered speculation about his possible successor in a region he has had an iron grip on for decades. And a similar headline on the front page of Taifa Leo, and if my director can help me with this, the front page of Taifa Leo, Mbadi apewa urithi. Aida asema mbunge maalum ana ujuzi wa kutosha kurithi Raila Nyanza. Now, these are some of the conversations that no one expected to have this year. The succession in Nyanza, succession within ODM, the succession within Azimio. And Bwana Pugisio, let's start with you. This changes the game for everyone. I can see even another headline. Jimmy Wanjigi. Bwenyenye Jimmy Wanjigi asema Kalonzo pia anafaa staafu pamoja na Raila. Now, the conversation has changed completely with the possible or the expected exit of Raila Odinga from this political game.
Well, first of all, all that we're talking about depends on Raila going to the AU.
It would appear we're looking at this as a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, that's the problem. We think that this is a foregone conclusion. Of course, we pray for Raila. Raila has been a high-level official of the AU Commission in infrastructure. And so he understands the system, and he's well-fitted to go into the position of chairman. And if it is the regional, it's the East African region to give, to deliver the person, then Raila is in good company. And I hope that the Kenyan government will do their best to promote him, including campaigning for him. But coming home after that, it's going to be, first of all, a shocker in the system, because to fit in Raila's shoes in Azimio, it's not a quick thing that you can just put anybody in there. It's not easy. Even the person given that position will have to prepare himself or herself for really fitting in a situation that only Raila could have fitted in at that particular time. Dealing with the things that he has dealt and the people that he has had to deal with, he has special qualities that only are born through many years of suffering, many years of being detained, many years of giving up everything and yet gaining. So you have all those solutions that you have to deal with, a special breed of a person. But it is not going to be difficult then, at the end of the day, first of all, starting from Nyanza, to find who succeeds him. Because you see, in Nyanza you have various problem-solving groups that can help you. You know, the Council of Elders is there, and the party is a strong party. ODM is a strong party, and they can make their own decisions. There'll be a big fight, definitely, for who succeeds Raila in Nyanza. And I see that people are talking about John Barry and maybe you know, the governor for
there's according to the Taifa Leo, there's Gladys Wanga.
Yeah.
Has there been an instance in Kenya where we have had this kind of helter-skelter activity because of the exit or otherwise of one individual in Kenya's politics?
Well, it is tough. It's like when Moi was leaving Kanu. When President Moi was leaving Kanu, you saw the chaos that came and broke the party altogether. So there's a big danger in just, I think Raila will just have to hold on to this thing. But now if he goes to AU, then he has to leave it. But I'm sure there must be mechanisms he's putting in place to make sure that the party does not collapse. I mean, that's what I have.
And given that kind of comparison, that what we saw with the exit of President Daniel Moi when he left active politics, and what happened to Kanu after that, despite the attempts to succeed him, is this what we expect with ODM and even Azimio, that with the exit of Raila Odinga, it is chaos and probably the beginning of the end of the ODM party?
You know, let me first of all say that what I'm seeing, in my view, is not very good manners. Because it's like, you know, dreaming of, you know, succeeding your father when he's still alive. It is like dancing on your parents' grave, yeah, even before it dries up. I think people need to be a bit patient and wait. And the shoes that they're even dreaming of filling, those shoes are huge, like my brother Pokisha said. So don't just dream of filling those shoes. You must also know that that space comes with a lot of weight. And you may not be able to carry that weight. You may end up sinking even before you start walking. So people need to be a bit careful. But again, let me say this. There are two things that I want to say. One is the issue of succession planning in what we do, be it in the political scene, be it in management, in parastatals. In the Kenyan context, I have not seen people who are there before us who prepare the next generation to take over. They don't prepare them. So one, they hang into office until the last minute. And worst of all, there's no preparation for those who are behind to take over. So they take over and they start grappling in darkness, and that's why we end up having this chaos. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about is the issue of ideology. All these political parties which have been formed, especially after Kanu disappeared, at least Kanu has some ideology, it has some ideology. But the ones which came after Kanu, you know, we can say many bad things about Kanu, but at least we knew what Kanu stood for. These are the political parties that have come. Are there for convenience. They're there for taking power.
But has there
so once you've taken power, you don't know what to do with the power.
Because Bonakis,
once you exit the scene,
even the example given, what happened to Kanu after the exit of Daniel Moi.
Yeah.
We saw that once Mwai Kibaki left, that was the end of PNU.
That's what I'm saying. There's the issue of succession planning, which doesn't exist. And then there's the issue, because if the party is solid, it is grounded on some form of ideology, okay? It will live beyond its time. But this is a party built on a very weak sand. There's nothing. It was just formed for convenience. I call my friend Pogisho, I call my friend Kirwa, and you say, you know, I know you're respecting the community, you are respected, you can bring so many people on the board, let's take power. Once we've taken power, there is nothing that you do to improve the lives of the people. You only go there to loot. And after you've looted enough and your time comes, and because now the Constitution forces you to leave the office, you leave. What have you done apart from looting? So there's no ideology.
Some of these parties.
There's nothing. These are not political. They are just vehicles for convenience.
And Bwana Pogiso talked about preparation for succession. And we saw an attempt by Daniel Moi to do that when he exited. And his successor, or his chosen successor, was supposed to take over the mantle of leadership in that party. But even with that, Uhuru Kenyatta was not able to sustain the party and eventually ditched it for a different outfit. We've seen this in history, and Kanu is probably, and he's rightly put it, perhaps the best run political outfit that Kenya has seen. Do you think that ODM could actually survive with the exit of Raila?
Well, let me start the other way around by saying Kanu was institutionalized and it believed in institutions. That's why Kanu is still ruling the country indirectly. Remember, Kibaki was the vice president of Kanu. Uhuru was the presidential candidate of Kanu. William Ruto was secretary general of Kanu. So Kanu is still in town, but in different form. Why? It is because there were some serious problems with internal dynamics that do not allow Kanu to transit to the next phase. One of the challenges was the choice of the candidate in 2002. Number two is also trying to resolve internal problems by making it individual based instead of allowing it to be institutionalized, settled. Otherwise, Kanu would have done effective succession without the challenge that it was forced to face after the exit of President Moi. Perhaps if President Kibaki had been allowed to go full term and take over Kanu smoothly, still he would have won in Kanu. But out of frustration, where he was demoted from vice president to minister for health, and subsequently he had to leave, that is part of the problem of Kanu. Third, even the team that Kanu still had up to 2002, had we allowed smooth transition, those of us who had already moved to another outfit possibly would have lost the election. But when there was bungled issues in Kasarani that the late Kamodo said Kasarani turned Kisirani, they were forced now, the LDP wing came and formed with us the National Rainbow Coalition, and out of the outrage, Kanu was decimated on the platform of political competition. ODM, at this particular time, may not have clear institutional capacity to transit the Raila absence. But thank God, Raila is still around, and he said he's not retiring from politics. You know, when you retire in good time and you allow transition to take place, you are likely to midwife that process to logical conclusion.
Okay. So
go back to Tanzania again.
The party will still depend on Raila.
It still depend on Raila. And Raila has still got the network within the Azimio family. That yes, ODM will be told you cannot stand alone. ODM, you must survive by embracing other Kenyans that have been part of Azimio. Because what is happening today in Kenya, no single outfit, and that's why even the current president had to look for other individuals. People like Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, Amason Kingi, Justin Muturi, and others, because he realized he was going to be a lone ranger.
Okay.
And he needed semblance of national diversity.
I'll add you one more minute as you give your final comments. You wanted to draw a parallel with what's happening in Tanzania as well.
Yeah, Nyerere was to retire in 1980, but he was prevailed not to retire. But his major desire to retire early when he was still strong, because he was above 63 years, he was younger than I am today, is because he wanted to see Tanzania without him by midwifing the transition. And he was lucky to see two presidents alive. In fact, it's the third president, actually the second president that announced his death, the late Benjamin Mkapa. So at times, even at family level, make sure that you hand over some of the activities when you are still alive, if you want to continue your wealth to be created beyond your lifetime.
All right. Bwana Kisia, your opportunity to make your final comments as well on this matter as we come to the end of this discussion.
Well, thank you, Fred. What I can only say is that it's important in whatever we do, be it politics, be it management, of anything. Because I've seen situations where in some of the state corporations, people have been there for 2 decades holding the same position. They have refused to move out. They have refused to nurture talent. They have refused to allow other people to grow. These are the people who don't even go on leave, for reasons best known to them. I think it is important to realize that at a certain point in time, if you are somebody who exercises good leadership, that you must be able to nurture people, that when your time comes, that you exit the scene when you're still strong. It is also gives you a lot of satisfaction to see the people who you've mentored growing and taking off from you. I think we need to inculcate that culture in ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bwana Pogisio?
Well, these days I speak a lot more on trust. And I remember last week it was the deficit of trust, trust deficit, and try to bring trust back to politics and to leadership and to families. And that it's not about money anymore, it's about the shortage or lack of trust. That's the biggest expense in our society. And so this country needs to worry very much about the grey listing, need to worry very much about the way that our economy is going, need to worry about how to bring all that back so that the people, the common person can trust the system, can trust leadership in this country. And then also the leadership can trust the people and not try to impose things on the people, but get the backing of the people for you to succeed in doing things that are right, and so on. So anyway, it's something that you'll hear me a lot about, and that we speak about these things because we think that money can solve every problem in Kenya, and that's why we have to go and steal, or every day you hear how one person has taken billions of shillings, and we clap for those people, we vote for them. And you wait for the listing of the people who want to be governors in this country. There will be no shortage of wash, and so on. So I mean, I'm just telling you this because prepare. If that is the thing that they are going after, and how come there is no development in our counties? It's going to be the same thing. So let's worry about that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Samuel Pogisio, former Majority Leader, Kenyan Senate, and also former ICT Minister. Kipruto Arap Kirwa, former Agriculture Minister, and Philip Kisia, Leadership and Governance Expert, and also former Town Clerk, Nairobi County. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't get better or bigger than this panel. And I'm looking forward to be hosting this panel every Monday, just the way you are, gentlemen. Thank you so much for agreeing to come to TV47 and for your very well-considered opinions on the matters we've discussed. Conversations that will definitely continue throughout this week. And straight to our editorial comment today on something that we've also discussed. Now, once again, Kenya finds itself in the uncomfortable spotlight of international scrutiny, this time as one of the 24 countries placed on the grey list by the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, the global anti-money laundering watchdog. This designation should serve as a wake-up call for both law enforcement agencies and legislators in Kenya. It is imperative that immediate action is taken to strengthen the country's safeguards against the flow of dirty cash, illicit trade, and money laundering activities. Being on the grey list not only tarnishes Nairobi's reputation as a financial center, but also raises serious concerns about Kenya's vulnerability to becoming a safe haven for criminals involved in various illicit activities. The list signifies deficiencies in dealing with money laundering and terrorist financing, issues that demand urgent attention and robust measures. Of particular concern is Kenya's status as a regional hub for illicit gold trade, drug trafficking, and wildlife smuggling. The involvement of individuals engaging in these nefarious activities, some of whom have even ascended to positions of political leadership, further underscores the gravity of the situation. It is evident that stronger laws and stricter enforcement mechanisms are urgently needed to prevent Kenya from becoming a playground for gold, drug, and wildlife traffickers, as well as money launderers. It means cracking down on enablers of money laundering, such as law firms, casinos,